Miriam, those were great words. But I wanted to let you know that I've never met the next Marine. Never have. It's hard to follow a guy like Gene Castanetti, but I'm going to tell some very short sea stories. One was 2004. They go, I'll go back to 2004. I was traveling overseas, and I said to Gene, who was running the Punchbowl cemetery, I said, Gene, if I come back in a body bag, are you going to have a place for me? And Gene said, yep, but sure. He says, but you got to be there next Monday morning. I've been wanting to tell the last sea story for a long time. Matthew, Mitchell, Madalyn, James. One awesome dad. 2004, when I came back, I started working at Pearl Harbor. I found out from our public relations firm and from my partners, Mr. Cologne, that the state legislature was about to have a resolution to eradicate our center. And he said, we don't have much of a chance because the people from the mainland of our center was putting Ferris wheels and doing all sorts of things over the graves in Arizona. All bad press, but they had built a big case. And there was a hearing, and our public relations firm, my partner said, not much of a chance, but we have to at least attend. So I went to the state capitol building. I went into a very impressive room with 5 representatives there. It was kind of like a committee or a judge. And they have a hearing, everybody tells their story. It goes on for an hour or so. And there was one fellow on the far end, the starboard side, that kept asking for fairly balanced questions. I works for Fox TV. So anyway, we left and went out the passageway, said they'd have a result in about half an hour, the conclusion. And all of a sudden, only about 10 minutes later, the public relations guy rushes out and said, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. He says, we won. I said, wow. So I was a little confused for a while, so I finally went back to the room, and most of the fellows, the representatives were leaving, and the one on the far end, who had asked the more balanced questions, was sitting there. And I said, the first time I really got to meet him, I said, is it okay if I talk to you? He said, sure. I said, introduced ourselves, and he says, my name's Mark Moses. He says, but I've known you, Mr. Brent, for some time. I said, I read every one of your stories, every one of your stories when you became a journalist, third-rate journalist. But he said, I read all your stories. And he said, more than that, I'm a Marine. I was in the Marine Corps for 28 years. It was the epitome of once a Marine. That's right. I'll never forget Mark. Never. The last year and a half, I lost 2 other friends, and I went back into my memory bank and told a story about my grandmother when I was only 10 years old. I'd like to share it with you. My grandfather just died, and I remember I was shook, and I remember touching his hand at the funeral place, and it was really cold. And that night, after the funeral, my grandmother she lived in inner city Chicago, and she took me up to the window and she said, Patrick, you see those stars up there? Each one of those stars isn't really a star. It's a hole in the sky where people we've lost and people we love are up there looking out for us. And your grandfather is one of those stars. And Patrick, he's looking out for you. Don't ever let him down. Well, Sook, one of those stars tonight is Mark Moses. And he's looking out for everybody, especially you and the family. Let's make sure all of us never let him down. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. My dad would always say, like Patrick said, once a Marine, always a Marine. One time I came home and I told my dad, hey Dad, I met a guy today, he's an ex-Marine. And he stopped and he looked at me, he said, ex-Marine? You're never an ex-Marine. So that's a good little story. Brought back some memories. Next we'll have Jason Jones come up and say a few words. He's a former chief of staff for my dad while he was in the legislature.